Hi, this is Brad with Baker County Trash Pickup. My wife and I recently started a weekly residential trash pickup company when Waste Management left our county. There used to be only 2 companies that offered it. Waste Management left. There's one other company that started up. So now there are 3 companies in our county, and these videos are showing you all about how we're getting started, giving you the numbers. So hopefully you can be entertained, but also helped if you're looking at starting your own residential trash pickup company. Now what you're seeing is Sunday morning. I do not enjoy working on Sundays. Logistically, I found that makes the most sense for when to drop off and pick up cans. We had 2 cans that we had to drop off. We also had 1 can that we had to pick up. If you didn't watch last week's video about the drama that went down with one client, go ahead and watch that. I also need to start tracking these serial numbers wherever I drop them off. But we are picking up our can from this address that fired us. It was unused. So no can at the street. Don't know where she keeps them. There it is. Now the question is, was that one last little bit of spite? Or was that she just never read the email about putting it out at the street? I don't know. At this point, it doesn't matter either. There are some competitors locally, and I'm gonna mention them, but don't ever think I'm trying to say anything bad about them. I'm sure some of their friends or families, or maybe even they are watching. If I say something that doesn't line up with the way I'd run my business, it's not me saying anything bad, it's just my thoughts. But to send out cans every single day, from the customer standpoint, that is great. I'm gonna love if I can get a can tomorrow. But from a business perspective, that's the equivalent of me going and mowing the lawn one day, then going back and mowing the neighbor's lawn the next day. This is a first. This thing is covered in ants. Yeesh. Then 3 days later, going back and mowing the neighbor down the street's lawn. Just do it all at once. If you bundle things together and explain to the customer, unfortunately, we only run once a week, I don't know if anybody would cancel based on the fact that you couldn't get them their can that day. If you're getting it to them before the pickup, to me, that's all that matters. But this is a new industry, so I really don't know. I am trying to bring over the information I have from lawn care and landscaping and scheduling and efficiency there and apply it to trash. I think a lot of it matches, but I honestly just don't know. So yes, there were ants all over this bag. This is what I would put forth as another exhibit of why liners are so important at this stage in my business when I'm doing everything manually. I'm the one who is touching every piece of trash that's in this can. In order to eliminate as much of that as possible, I'm using liners in each and every can. There's a lot of people who are saying, oh, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of money. If you feel that way, what I would encourage you to do is this. Go take a look at your trash can the day before trash pickup and envision yourself, or even try it out if you think it's no big deal. I want you to pick every single piece of trash out of that can and put it somewhere, probably just on the ground. That'll give you an idea of what I would have to do if these liners were not in place. Maybe you bag everything. Great, you're still gonna have to touch 15 different bags if that's how many bags are in your can. I hope none of those bags leaked. I hope none of those bags grew maggots. I hope none of those bags pop open on you as you pull them out and they get caught on, some piece of metal or wood or something that you put in the thing. Now that's kind of a ramble, but my point at the end of the day is, if you're sitting there saying liners are useless, have you really considered what it keeps me from having to do? Or have you gone through the motions of emptying a trash can manually without liners? If you're somebody who works for a garbage company and you've got a tipper truck that does it all automatically, of course these are gonna look stupid to you. If you're sitting there as a homeowner and the only time you've ever touched your trash is when you drop it in a trash can and wheel it to the curb, of course me putting liners in is gonna look stupid to you. And even if there is a client who bags every single piece of trash in their trash can, it's still quicker for me to use these liners. I've timed myself. At this point, I am down to about 1.5 minutes average on these stops, which is down from an average of 2 minutes per stop the week before. So I'm definitely getting quicker. This is the 2nd week picking up with those cans. But again, I never would have even imagined ants crawling and making a nest in a can inside of a week would have been a thing that I had to worry about. But because I'm touching all this stuff manually, if I wouldn't have had those liners in, my goodness, I would have been eaten alive with those ants. Not terrible considering it was covered in fire ants. I think I only got 1 bite where my glove didn't cover, so not bad. Now, I know everybody's got their own viewpoint, so if you still think liners are stupid, that's fine. All I'm saying is, in my experience, they are the only way to go until I get some type of a tipper arm that prevents me from having to touch every single piece of trash. Now, on that subject, I do believe the next video you see, I should have, well, I was going to say functioning. I'm going to test something that we bought, and Terry, a friend of mine, helped do some welding and fabrication on the trailer to hold it, so I think it's going to work out. I'm still going to run liners and everything for another couple weeks because we have some extra liners, so there's no point. But if it breaks or it doesn't work out and I have to go back to doing it manually, I want those liners in. Here's, you can see me having to pull out all these bags to get to the liners. There's still Amazon boxes in, so that's another very common comment that I've been seeing is people saying, just tell everybody everything has to be bagged. I would say, look at your own trash can. Do you bag 100% of your stuff? Are there no Amazon boxes that you just tossed in? Is there no cans or Coke bottles that your kids threw in when they cleaned out their car? Or, you know, somebody else in the family who doesn't know the ins and outs of your agreement with the trash man. The idea that if you just magically say the words bag all the trash and that's what happens with every single can, that's not reality based on the very few pickups I've seen. If you've been doing it longer and you do get everybody to bag their trash, that's great. I've only been doing it 3 weeks and there's tons of stuff that isn't bagged even though I've asked people to. The liners are a necessity for me until I get a non-manual option. As far as customer growth over the past week, we have not had much. I did drop off 2 cans, but I had to pick one up. There's still that gentleman on the dirt road, actually 2 folks on the dirt road you saw last week that I had initially and had to drop because I didn't know they were on a dirt road. So that's a bummer. I'm still kind of just trying to get back to where I was a week or 2 ago as far as the customer counts. Also experimenting with some different techniques for moving the trash. You can see I don't have any sidewalls on this day. I went ahead and took the other wooden plank off. This does mean that it is much easier to throw the trash in. I don't have to throw it as much because I can kind of just heave it over or push it over in some instances. But there's a pretty big disadvantage that you'll see soon with this setup. So I won't be running it again. We're going to have definitely a modified trailer next time you see it in next week's video. Part of that is because of the issue without any wood planks, and part of it is because of that new tipper that we're putting in. This house, I think when they toss the trash in, they just toss it without looking and it yanks the liner down the first few times. So there's a few bags that you have to toss in before you can find out where the liner is. These liners are not like a foolproof solution for never having to touch bags. You're still going to have to touch bags. It just makes the whole process a lot cleaner, a lot quicker, much more efficient. Once I can stop using them, it'll be great because it's going to be an extra 75 cents at every stop. They're not cheap, and I haven't found a cheaper source for them unless I want to order like, 3 pallets of them and spend 10 grand, which I definitely don't want to do. So we're just going to run with them as being expensive until I figure out another solution. But the other thing is that as these cans get dirtier, I'm going to sound like a jerk saying this, but it's a beautiful thing of business making business. So another avenue that we are looking at expanding to is cleaning trash cans. If I have liners in every trash can, that's going to keep them cleaner for much longer, which means people won't need them cleaned. The market of folks who actually care about cleaning, I'm sure, is very small. But again, that's something in the next, 2 or 3 months we're looking at adding to the lineup. And then that's also something where we can service everybody with a trash can, not just people with our trash cans alone. We finally got this guy after 3 weeks of missing his can. Or 2 weeks, this is the 3rd week. Once the liners do go away, that will mean our own cans get dirtier that much quicker, and maybe there will be more of a market for that. When you pop these liners open and put them in, they are not very thick at all. They've been working fine for everything I need. What I found is that I'm hitting my limit of what I can physically lift before I reach the bag's limit of what it will hold without ripping. When I'm saying there's ants and roaches and bugs, and please don't think I'm trying to say anything negative about the homeowners. We're in Florida. Over the course of a week, yeah, you can have an infestation of maggots or roaches find your trash, and it's not that you're a dirty person. It's not that you're doing something wrong. That's just the way it works around here. The bugs get in the trash. Lots of roaches and maggots in that one. It's something I did not think about prior to starting this business, but again, is a nice reason to have these liners because it's a little less contact. And if there are juices or something, it keeps it relatively contained so that the inside of the can stays dry. And then when I flip it over and, beat on it, the maggots and the roaches, they just fall out because there's not a lot of goop at the bottom. If I get to a point where I don't use those liners anymore, that will be one downside, is I'll be dealing with dirtier and stinkier cans. But it'll be more money in our pocket at the end of the day because I'm not using 75 cents a stop in liner. And it could also lead to some trash can cleaning revenue down the road once we get that set up and going. They do not like me. This stop I love. I have 2 houses with 2 cans. I back down this road, I'd service one house, then I pull forward just a little bit and do another. This is the kind of density, this example right here is the density that you need to make money in this business. I will readily admit I have very little experience hauling trash because I've done it 3 weeks, but a lot of the principles that I know a lot about in lawn care and landscaping, which I've been doing for 7 years, especially around route density and efficiency, they apply 100% to this trash business. And I've said it in several other videos, both of the competitors that I have in my county, they service the entire county. And we live in a fairly large, very rural county where you've got a lot of roads. And if you service everybody and you've only got one client 20 minutes away and you go to their house, if you've watched the videos before, this is something I've said every single time, so it's not a new idea to you. But this stop right here is the closest example I have to show you of you can make some money in this business if you do your stops right. And so what I'm focusing on is just a very few neighborhoods. And in those neighborhoods, I'm offering the least expensive price for trash pickup, hoping that I can get the majority of those houses and saturate that neighborhood so I don't have to do a lot of driving. I wanted to experiment. You're going to see a piece of trash blow out, unfortunately. I wanted to see how much trash I would lose if I drove down the road without those wooden planks. And this right here is why I will not ever run without those planks again. One piece of trash blown out over the course of a day may not seem like a lot. I don't want any trash to come out of my trailer and blow onto the highway here in the county, the side of the road, because then that's problems for somebody else. Not to mention it looks terrible if someone was driving behind me. My name is plastered all over the side of this trailer. It's just not a good look. So that was a bummer. I did not know about it until I sat and watched this footage back, so there's not really anything I can do about it. But moving forward, we're going to have planks on. We're not going to run without them, so we can avoid that. This is the super sketchy place where I don't like picking up. We're going to get her to move the can back. I asked my wife to move it to here, but then she just went ahead and started taking it out. And when I parked and got out, she was doing the trash.
I got it.
What?
Give me a bag.
Look at you. Look at you. I think I got that on camera.
Oh no.
I'm so proud of her. She was just supposed to move it for me for safety. I talked to her about it later. She's like, I don't know what I would have done if it was heavy, but it wasn't, so hey, it works. Our original plan was to have my wife drive while I did all the trash picking up. The way that our schedule is right now, I've built a really nice loop of places that we visit for trash pickup, and at the end of that loop, we get on the road to the landfill. On a lot of places on that loop, you've got to get up to highway speeds. You've got to do back and down one road, like I said. There are several roads where you have very tight cul-de-sacs where you have to do 3-point turns into somebody's driveway. And she does not yet feel comfortable doing that. So she's just been tagging along and getting the feel of things. So that's why she was able to hop out. 8:57 a.m., no can. We turned around so we wouldn't have to go down that way again. That house at the dirt road that I showed you was the one that we had to drop, but we said as a courtesy we would still pick up through the end of June. I kind of wish the guy would have said, hey, we're not going to put anything out this week. You don't need to visit, because it is about a 10-minute investment to drive down to that road and then come around and turn back. I can understand why he probably wouldn't care or think about what I've got to go through. Like, he's not a customer. I dropped him because I signed him up on accident. He's well within his rights. He doesn't have to give me updates. But on my end, I'm like, it really would have been nice to save that 10 minutes of wear and tear on the truck. But we've got one more week of picking up, and then we don't have to worry about that dirt road anymore. That, again, was completely my fault. I just didn't know there was a dirt road at the back end of that neighborhood.
That didn't work.
So figuring out how to toss this trash, it is a lot easier without these planks, because I can lift and push over that metal edge. I can use the metal edge to hold it while I get my hand in a better spot. But again, any risk of blowout is not something that moving forward I'm going to deal with. So again, somebody who knows about tarps needs to tell me what the best thing to do is. I'm assuming the tarp kind of lets the wind go over it. And so what I'm thinking is, let me kind of blanket it as much as possible, which is letting it all out. So I don't know, what do you guys think? There's no sense in tying it down that I can see, because it would lift everything up over. So I'm hoping this kind of just lets the wind go past it. I don't know. This footage is heading from our last stop to the landfill. I wanted to film it on the highway and see how it handled it. I think 55, 60 is what we're getting up to on this road. And the tarp is blowing around. I don't have anywhere to tie those grommets down though, so I do think tying the tarp down is what needs to be done. Next week we'll be able to, because those wood planks will give us a lot of easy screw down points for some anchors. And I'll just get some bungee straps that'll hook into the grommets and connect to those tie down points. So moving forward, that'll be fine. But overall, the tarp did its job. We only lost one piece of trash when it wasn't tarped on a road that was 35 or 40 miles an hour. So I think moving forward, we should be okay with our new design, and I won't have to worry about trash blowout anymore. This tarp is just a manual one, completely 100% manual. I've seen some that are real nice on trailers where you just like crank and it's got an arm that lifts it and tilts it and spreads it out itself. That wouldn't work for me because of what I am putting on the side of the trailer to lift the cans in. You'll see that next week. So it worked out that this one just had a real cheap one that was completely manual. So again, if you've never been to a landfill, you drive onto these scales and you have to wait a little bit. When you drive on, your truck is rocking it back and forth, so you see the weight goes up and down. You've got to stay there until the scale stops moving. This was real funny. The guy at the weigh station was like, "Hey, one of my regulars told me you had me on YouTube." It was the gentleman I had a conversation with about tear weight. And the first one, I was like, "Oh, yeah." He's like, "Don't do that to me." So he did not like being on YouTube. So I was like, "All right, I won't put you in anymore. Don't worry. And I don't think I looked back because I got scared and I didn't show him. It was just the audio recording of our conversation about, how I thought you could set up a tare weight, T-A-R-E, so that my truck and trailer would have a weight of what it was empty. Then you only have to weigh when you go in, and they already know what your empty weight is, so what you dump. But that's not the case for trucks and trailers, so I've got to weigh in and out every time. I have started unplugging the controller to my dump trailer when I'm not using it. Whenever I first picked this trailer up and the salesman was showing it to me, he tilted it up and showed it how it worked, and then he put the controller back in the box and he closed the lid. But where he put the controller, the lid actually pressed one of the buttons. So he shut the battery box and the dump trailer started going up. And it was locked with its little safety latch, so it started tilting to one side. He caught it in just a few seconds, so I don't think there was any damage done, but that was always in the back of my mind. And finally, last week, I was like, I don't want this to happen. So now, moving forward, I'm going to unscrew that controller, so no matter what, it can't accidentally start raising or lowering on its own if it's in the battery box and it bumps up against something. Because in that battery box, there's not an on or off switch. It's got power all the time. So if you press the up or down, it's going to go up or down no matter what. So unscrewing it and screwing it back in, less than a minute of work for each dump visit. That's well worth the safety for me. So moving forward, that'll be the standard. So now we've reached the point in the video where we will go over some of our numbers. Customers serviced, I had no change in customers that I actually serviced this week. We are still at 17. The number of cans did go up to 19. It was 2 cans more than last week. This is the biggest thing I'm happy about. The time per can, my average stop was only 1.5 minutes. I think the first week it was like 3 minutes. The second week it was 2, and now it's 1.5. So we're getting quicker. I'm figuring out tiny little efficiencies, like as I'm pulling up, take my seatbelt off. As I'm hopping out, I'm putting the gloves on while I'm walking to the places that I need to go rather than walk to the places and then put my gloves on while I'm sitting still. I'm taking my gloves off as soon as I'm done touching the can and as I'm walking back to the truck rather than taking my gloves off when I get to the truck. So dumb little stuff like that that's shaving a couple seconds here and there is working out better for us. It still took us 3.5 hours. Of course, there's myself and my wife, so I'm accounting for both of our time, which means that on this day, we spent 7 man-hours. So that's another thing I'd like to point out about how important route density is for a business like this. If my average is 1.5 minutes a stop, and there's 19 stops, that's only 30 minutes of work. Now the dump, the landfill ends up taking about an hour. From the time that we leave our last pickup to the time that we leave the dump, that has been averaging very close to an hour. And then the drive from the dump back to our house, which as we grow, that will become the drive from the dump to the rest of our stops. That will depend on how many dump stops we get up to during a day. But what this shows is that out of the 3.5 hours of work, about an hour that was dedicated to the landfill. So that's about 2.5 hours. Takes us roughly half an hour to get home. A little bit less, but we'll just say a half hour. So now we're left with 2 hours. So out of that 2 hours, only about 30 minutes of it was actual work. So that loop that I have built, there's about an hour and a half of driving altogether on it. Now, some of that is goes real slow because, we've got to spend 5 minutes backing down a road. We've got, 3-point turns, like I mentioned, that might eat up 2 minutes here or there. But what I'm hoping is that hour and a half doesn't get much longer for the driving, and we are able to just add stops in the places that we already are. So that's the long-term goal, is that 28 minutes of work will continue to increase, but it's directly tied to, 2 minutes a can so that we don't have much wasted driving time. I don't know if I explained that very well. Maybe I'll make a separate video on it. But it shows that where we are at, we are spending about an hour and a half driving to do our work. We're spending about 30 minutes doing our work. We're spending about an hour dumping our work, and then another half hour to get home. If I take on the wrong clients, I will add to that non-productive driving time. If I take on the right clients, I will add to that productive working time. Now, the dump time, that won't change until I have enough customers that I completely fill my trailer and need a second visit. Because the process of dumping a trailer that has one trash bag in it is exactly the same time-wise as dumping a completely full one. Okay, maybe the ram takes another couple of 15 seconds to get to the fully extended position because it's a heavier load. But if I'm at the dump an hour, it's not like a full dump trailer is going to add 15 minutes. Maybe it adds a few seconds, but it's still going to be an hour no matter how much is in. All of our costs did go up slightly this week. We used 2 more liners than last week, so we added about $2.25 there. So we spent $14.25 in liners. We spent a little bit more in fuel. That was because I was driving a bit more aggressively as I got more comfortable with the route, so I was speeding up quicker and braking harder. I think the price of gas, it was either the same or it just went up a couple cents. So I used a little bit more and it was a little bit more expensive. We spent $23.22 in fuel for this trip, which is an increase of 51 cents from last week. Our dump fees, we ended up adding about 80 pounds to what we dumped last week. We dumped 620 pounds, which cost us $9.39. And one thing that I haven't mentioned up to this point that I will begin tracking is mileage. We drove 61 miles our first week, 59 the second, and 60 the third. We made a few wrong turns around town on week 1. The difference in week 2 and 3, I'm not looking at tenths of a mile, so it's completely plausible that I was driving the same distance between week 2 and 3. All that is a total of costs for this day of $46.86. So when we compare that against our revenue, which did not change, our profit just went down the extra cost. We made $104.14 for that day. My wife and I invested 7 man-hours, so when you do 104.14 divided by 7, we are left with a little bit under $15 an hour. So at this point, we would be better off just going and getting jobs as garbage men, right? Because then we'd have benefits, we'd have 401k, and that's an oversimplified comparison because there's no company we could go work for where we would just do this, one day out of the week. We'd do it 3.5 hours in a morning that works for us. So the idea of, just go get a job doing this, it's just kind of a silly little thing to say because our hourly rate is so low. A lot of people take this stuff very literally. I still had another couple people say, how are you guys living off of $15 an hour if you're both... We're not. I'm breaking these numbers down this way to be entertaining, to help you understand how the money that we make from our subscription service is panning out once you back out expenses. If you've watched many of my videos, you know I always say, take all the stuff I'm giving you with a grain of salt. In some cases, you might need a handful of salt because I am only accounting for direct costs. I'm not adding in any of the other costs that we have, like wear and tear on the vehicle, the trailer, the tires, depreciation on those things. I'm not including any kind of self-employment tax or income tax. I'm not including general liability insurance, the monthly payment for our trailer. The cost of the cans has not been factored into this, but these numbers should give you somewhere to start if you are trying to figure something out like this on your own. Now, to close this week out, I'm going to leave you with a voicemail that I saw Sunday morning when I was passing out cans that I had received about 10 o'clock on Saturday night, and it was somebody who thought that I was their trash guy.
Hi, this is I'm at. My trash wasn't picked up this week. I don't know if we didn't put something out right or what went wrong, but I'd like to get it picked up sometime soon. If you could give me a call back, I'd appreciate it if you'd actually pick my trash up. Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
So you can imagine my surprise and horror because that guy is not my customer. So it's 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning, but you better believe I'm going to call him back. Hey, good morning. I'm so sorry to bug you on an early Sunday, but I just got your voicemail and I didn't want to leave you waiting. This is Brad Bear with Baker County Trash Pickup. I think you may have called the wrong company. Fortunately, we don't service, and I've been the one who's been handling all the onboarding, and your name is not at all familiar to me, so I think there's a small chance I'm mistaken, but I'd be willing to bet my kid's life on it that I'm not. I think you may have been trying to get a hold of either B&H Disposal or VJ's Trash Pickup. I believe we're the only 3 companies in the county that are offering trash pickup. Again, I'm Brad with Baker County Trash Pickup, and I don't think it's us you've got a contract with because your area, we haven't expanded in that way. So again, I'm very sorry to call you so early on a Sunday, but I did not want you to spend any time waiting on a call back from me, thinking that it was us. And I wanted you to be able to know sooner rather than later so that you could, reach out to whoever it is and see if they could get your trash picked up. So again, apologize all around for the early call and your frustrations. But if you've got any other questions, feel free to give us a call back. Thanks so much. Have a good one. I talked too long. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what kind of questions, concerns, or comments you have. Next week, you will be able to see us with the tipping option that we hope is going to work. We'll probably talk a little bit about that and the costs that went into it and why I picked that over something else. We will also see if it works because next week will be the first week that we actually use it in our trash pickup business. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it.